That's the way of putting it.
We're talking about grandmas.
Bet. You ready to just hop into it?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ayoo Chill podcast. Y'all already know the business. I think this is episode 4. Big shout out to Sean Collins last week. He came out and he killed it. So we're here today, and my friend, without further ado, let the people know who you are and where you're from.
So I'm Mike Ham. I live in Morristown, New Jersey. Been in Jersey basically my entire life, born and raised here. I host the Greetings from the Garden State podcast, which is a show all about New Jersey and the people in it. So we launched it back in October 2021. Since then, we've done primarily like local businesses, nonprofits. We're trying to expand that into doing like just more people that have done cool things or are doing cool things like in our state. So there are like a lot of artists that we're doing now, similar to what you're doing.
Sweet.
And I told you before, I know you didn't want to talk to me much prior because we wanted to just like do it all here in the conversation. But like I've been binging your show like crazy and may or may not eventually poach some of your former guests to come onto my show.
Yeah, there's no problem, man.
But it's just like, but that's the thing. Like I've discovered, and I'm sure you feel the same way, that like there's so many cool people here in the Garden State that are doing such cool things, and like a lot of them have never even been on a podcast or like been interviewed before or whatever. And like to me, that's a crime because there's just so much great stuff going on here.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like Jersey in a certain way, and actually, real quick, 2 things real quick. For your phone, is it in your left pocket or your right pocket?
Right pocket.
If you do me a favor and Twitter left, you hear that staticky stuff?
Yeah, I was like,
dude,
maybe
it's been happening the past couple podcasts now, and I always forget to tell my guests like right before we start.
That's an interesting technical default.
But to your point, yes, there are a lot of dope people in Jersey. And actually, matter of fact, since I've started to realize more and more that I think Jersey is one of the most slept on places.
Oh, for sure.
I'd almost say in the country, because I've been blessed enough to travel a lot. The past couple of years, I went to Austin, Houston, San Antonio. I got to go to San Francisco, LA, and Florida. I got to go to Miami, Orlando. And like, I guess like those are like a lot of like the touristy, I guess, most like, big cities. But I don't know, like every time I go, people who, I grew up with high school from here,
Right.
and maybe you've had a similar experience where they're just like, I can't wait to get out of Jersey. I can't wait
some
to
people are
leave,"
like that.
and like that. And I don't know, every time I leave California or Texas or wherever else I'm coming from, even coming back from Peru, I love coming back to Newark, stepping off the airport.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I came off. I was coming back from a trip from Peru in January. As soon as I step off the plane, or at least we pick up our baggage and we're waiting to get picked up, I'm sitting there, and there's a lady, and she's just screaming. She's like being super ratchet, just like disgusting.
These are my people.
And yes, that's exactly what I was thinking, dude. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, dude, I'm home. Like, I'm so happy
finally.
to be here.
Yeah, like it's like especially coming out of like Florida and places like that where you see like your own types of things, and you get back to Jersey and you see that, you're like, yes. This is what I missed, and I didn't even realize that I missed it.
Yeah, dude. So, usually for the beginning parts of the podcast, and I don't want to get too deep into it because, believe it or not, I did also binge a lot of your stuff and was doing a little research and everything and seeing.
Right.
And I saw that, you started out a lot with sports and that with baseball before you went into college and everything. So kind of bring me around that time where you're kind of figuring out like your life and how it led you to podcasting.
Ooh, that's going to fill up the entire hour and a half, I think. But so I grew up, like I said, in Jersey, playing baseball. Like that's pretty much like all I did. Played through high school, played in college. I went to TCNJ, like I told you before. Graduated in 2012, had no idea what I wanted to do with life. And I had a political science degree, so that wasn't going to help me at all. But I knew I had an extra semester to go in the fall, and I knew we didn't have a pitching coach, and I was a pitcher. And so I went to the coach. I was like, hey, I know we need a guy, and I'm going to be here for the fall. So if you want to give me like a test run, I'll volunteer or whatever. And he was like, okay, cool. So did good enough in the fall to come back again for the spring, which was good because that's the actual season. And then from there, I got another job at a school in Pennsylvania. And then from there, I got a grad assistant job up in Rochester, New York at St. John Fisher College, where I was a grad assistant. So I got a free MBA and got paid to coach. And like, coaching is a really cool job in a sense that like it's just different, and like it's very similar to podcasting. Like when people do this as like a job, like a full-time job, it's different than what most people do. And I don't do this full-time, but I'm sure we'll get into that too. But the coaching is also just a total grind. It's like people think, you know, okay, Division III baseball plays 40 to 50 games a year. And that's like all you do. But like it's the summer times where I'm on the thruway driving from Rochester to Binghamton, back to Albany, up to Buffalo, like all in the span of 2 days or like a day. I did Albany and back, which is like a 3.5 hour drive in one day just to watch one kid throw like 2 innings.
That's insane.
Yeah. And I was like, we were talking off mic about the fattest you've ever been. That was the fattest that I've ever been. Like I came back, I was probably close to 260, probably like 255.
Word.
When I eventually moved back to Jersey at the end of that, because once my grad assistant once my MBA was done, then I was like back to being a normal person. Like the job was over, and because I was literally like get to the first rest stop on the New York State Thruway. I'd go to the McDonald's, I'd get whatever, like more than I should, and I'd just get back in the car and just start driving. And then like wouldn't eat any other place because like I would just use that per diem money, whatever, to like do other stuff with, because I was making $10,000 a year, you know, which is not a ton to live on.
Yeah.
But eventually, like that lifestyle, while people do it and find success with it and all that kind of stuff, like it just was like really wearing me down. Eventually like moved back to Jersey, was trying to figure out life, and then I got a job at an indoor sports facility in Lake Apacon. I did that for 8 months, and now I have the full-time job that I have now, which is selling title insurance, which is about as exciting as it sounds. But all that eventually kind of like led into like getting into podcasting, and COVID was obviously like a really shitty time for people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it provided me an opportunity to like do something different. And I think like that's kind of like what I've always wanted to try to do, like is something different that's like not just like a normal job or like a normal thing. So like during COVID, I started doing like these virtual networking events every week. Started like a LinkedIn video series where I would interview those people that would come on. You know, my original podcast, which was called The Morning Spotlight. And then eventually like that, I did that show for 2 years. And then, you know, again, in October of 21 started this new show. So that's kind of like a very Cliff Notes version. I can go deeper into whatever you want, but of like the baseball life, I guess, to podcasting.
I think that's a perfect segue, because I was actually just about to tell you the baseball life. Let's start there.
Yeah.
Okay. I actually played baseball for a couple years, and no, it's all good. I played baseball for a couple years, and it was, so I'm super Latino. My parents are first generation immigrants. They know nothing about baseball. They're from Peru.
Okay.
So, and all they know is soccer. And when I was a kid, I loved to do everything. Like when I was, I think up until like maybe like first grade, third grade, like I was like, oh, I want to play like football. And then they're like, oh, okay, so play some football.
Yeah.
And then so after that, I was like, I played some football. I liked that. That was cool. After that, I played a lot of basketball, and then I played soccer, obviously.
Yeah.
And I played so much soccer, and I had the same coach for soccer and basketball throughout like my whole middle school. And then the last 2 years, 7th and 8th grade, he was like, hey, I coach a baseball team. You should join baseball. And I was like, I ain't never swung a bat. I don't know nothing. Like, and I was like, all right,
You're athletic though.
Yeah. I was athletic. So I was like, all right, let's figure it out, right? So then, I got into baseball, and the culture of baseball is so wild, and especially like at a young age, dude. Like, I was so just thrown back from how different stuff is. So one thing I had to get used to was people touching my ass, which. Like, listen, like, I'm not, like, listen, there's nothing wrong with touching ass. All right, out of context, like, there's grown men, like, you know, slapping my butt,
right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, but it's like a part of the culture, right?
Yeah.
So, but it took me a little bit to assimilate to that, because when it happened to me for the first time,
Like, what the hell?
it was a culture shock, you know? And it happened at a time where, like, I couldn't do anything about it, you know? Like, the first time it happened to me, I remember I was going up to bat, right?
Yeah.
And it was my first time going up to bat. I was so nervous. And then as I'm going, I like out into, like, you know, the mound or whatever, like, my coach was like, hey, like get out there. And I was like, yo, what the fuck, man? I was like, yo.
Now you're not even worried about the at bat anymore.
Dude,
I think
I'm
that's
not-
really what it comes down to.
Not even, dude. And it was wild. And I like it was just really difficult. And I remember I was terrible at batting. Terrible. I think I hit maybe 3 baseballs into the air, maybe 4 during the whole 2 years
Yeah.
that I played. Like I was pretty god awful. And I would take like I would use people's bats and stuff. I think there's like oh, what is there's like a donut that goes on the and I would be there like practicing on the side, like not even knowing what I'm doing. I'm like, I don't know. So that was my baseball experience for a while. And also, what was it? There was something that the kids always said, like whenever there was a ball, whenever like the pitcher would throw something and it was like, and the umpire would be like ball or whatever, and they'd be like gada 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 gada, and I was like, yo, what are they saying, bro? Like,
There's some wild stuff that comes out of people's mouths during baseball games, and it's just like, but that's like what I mean. I don't know. I grew up doing that, like from like pee-wee, t-ball, whatever the hell it was, like all the way through, college level. Like when the last year that I coached, we made it to the World Series. Like we had a kid get drafted. Like we had like a legit team.
that's amazing.
And we were playing like in Wisconsin against some team from Wisconsin. Like it was a wild experience. And even there, like that's a pretty high level to get all the way to that point. And even there, you hear the exact same stuff. The exact same thing goes on, like I'm sure even in the big leagues, like it's the same type of stuff, like random shit.
It's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah,
it's great, man. And you know what? For me, I'm not gonna lie. Like they'd put me like on the outfield because they're like, yo, pray to God like no one hits like anything his way, because I could not catch anything. I couldn't catch anything for like I was really bad at the sport. But the thing is, I was like good team spirit, and also I'd always get hit by the ball. So I'd always walk.
Yeah. Were you playing on so this is because you said 7th or 8th grade. Was this on the big field or the little league field?
Bro, I wouldn't know the difference between the two.
Because I feel like at that age, you're like going up against kids that have now graduated from the little league field to a big field.
Yeah, maybe it was a big field.
And like to start there is insane.
Yeah, I think it felt like a big field. I don't know.
I'm sure at that point, it's like
it
this
felt
place is huge.
Yeah, and it's so bad too because, man, like, if there's anything I could respect in general sports, I think any sport that you have to do, you have to have a good amount of talent. I think there's a respect, like whether you think baseball is boring or exciting or whatever, regardless, you need talent to be able to throw a ball like with accuracy to like second base or third base or pass it to your friend. I couldn't do any of it. And what was the best part was that I didn't know any of the rules either. I didn't know any of the rules. Like all I knew, they were just like, yo, like, look at, like, there would be like a guy standing like behind a fence who was like a part of the team, but he wasn't a part of the team, and he'd give you hand signals to like steal or whatever, right? Yeah. And then he's like, yo, if I go like this, gotta just run as fast as you can.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. So I would steal hella bases, and I actually ran in a couple of times, but just because I got hit a lot, and it would suck. And I would be so pissed too every time. Like I would want to grab this bat and just like start like beating up the pitcher, because I'm like, dude, why are you hitting me?
Right.
But I had a little respect for him, because I was like, dude, you're throwing this ball hella fast. Like I couldn't even do this.
Yeah.
But there was one game that I'll never forget. It was the best game I've ever had in baseball. I was going up. Oh, they made me do some like stuff that I guess is frowned upon in baseball.
Oh.
I gotta put my coffee down for this. So they knew I couldn't hit. I would get hit, and that's the only way I would get on the mound or the base or whatever. So then they would have me go like with the bat. They would have me like shake it in front of the
to like distract the
pitcher.
Yeah.
And I do that all the time. That was like my thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, yo, this
that's
guy's
probably why you
coming
got
on.
hit so much, because they're like, this guy's a dick.
Yeah.
It's
So
in 8th grade. But
and I didn't know.
Right,
I didn't know.
you didn't know. It's not
I was
your
just
fault.
Like, I was like, screw it. So I was doing that one day, and then I get walked, and I was like, bet. So I go on first base, get on second base. Bases are loaded, right? I can't believe I even remembered that. Bases are loaded,
Yeah,
right?
that's pretty good.
I'm on second base, or was I? Yes, I was on second base, and so player hits it, goes all the way in the outfield. Not a home run, but like right on the edge, right? So they throw it back. But the runner on base, the third base runs in, and then I'm going from second to third. They throw it, and the guy catches it in the middle of second and third. I start running to third, and I'm in my head. I'm just like, dude, I don't want this guy to touch me. I was like, so I have two decisions.
Yeah.
I could run a half circle around him, the third, and then like just get on third base, or I run a half circle around him and they say, hey, you can't do that. You're out. And
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. So those are my two decisions to not get touched. So I chose to run a whole half circle around the guy, and he was just standing there with the baseball, and he was just like, and he just watched me as I ran to his left, my right, and just like, and he was just like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? And then I run to third, slide there, and then the ump looks, they start laughing, and they're like, safe. The other team, they were like some traveling baseball team.
Yeah.
I have no idea. It was like a scrimmage too, so it wasn't even that deep, right?
Right.
So he starts, he sees me safe. The whole other team got super angry, like crazy angry. Like I didn't even know baseball people got this angry. Like I know soccer people sometimes like, goal or like get in each other's face or something.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're pretty reserved. Like I've seen like some umps, like big guys,
Yeah.
like screaming in somebody's face, but never touch or whatever, right? I got onto that third base. The coach of the other team started getting like my coach's face, and he was like, "This is bullshit, blah 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 blah. This and that, right?" And then the game ends. We won. And then they were waiting for me in the parking lot. I was in 8th grade.
Because you ran around
Because
the guy?
I ran around it was pretty ridiculous though. Like when I say like a half circle to like third base, like it was
Right.
it was a half circle.
Well, it'd be one thing like if you ran through him.
Yeah.
You're like, well, my other option is to just go right through this guy and knock the ball out of his hand. That could be another option. And if that was the case, I would imagine that they might meet you in the parking lot after.
Yeah.
But just to run around him, I mean,
Yeah, it was a weird situation, but man, like those baseball days were the shit, man. Do you have any stories from like when you were doing baseball or anything that comes to mind, like your favorite times?
I mean, I started playing at a school in Pennsylvania, Franklin Marshall College, which is in Lancaster, which is where the Amish live. And but when I transferred to TCNJ, which was right after my sophomore year, like the style of baseball and like the level of play and like the kids you're playing against, like we were talking about, like you get off the airport or you get off the plane at the airport in Newark, like that's what it was. So like a TCNJ plays in the NJAC, which is all Jersey colleges. So it's Willie P, Ramapo, Rutgers Newark, Rutgers Camden, Stockton, Rowan, Jersey City. And so like you're playing against kids that are like Jersey tough, like dirt bags. And like I was like, but it was the same kind of thing. Like our first NJAC game, we were playing against them, and like back when I was at the old school, it was like, oh, like go get him, like good luck. And then this one's like, yo, fuck you, like I'm gonna beat you, like that's really what it came down to. And I was like, I'm home. Like it's just like a callback to our earlier conversation, but that's what it felt like. And like playing in that environment was just like, it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing it. There was always like stupid things, like some kid played against this kid all the way since like Little League, and now they're like bitter rivals, and like I really didn't care. I was just like, I'm just gonna do my thing. Like people can yell at me all they want. Like somebody called me a jockey once because my one friend Bobby, who's a starter, was a starter for us, like a starting pitcher. He's like 6'5", and we were playing at Kane, and he pitched like the first 7 innings. I was gonna pitch the 8th inning, and then our other reliever Joe was gonna pitch the 9th inning. So like Bobby goes out there, and then I get out there, and I'm clearly not 6'5". And they're calling me a jockey, and I'm like, I'm not even that short. I'm like 5'10" in spikes, like so that's not that short, But it just like compared to that, but but there was definitely some like when we played at Jersey City one time, and there was one fan, he was wasted, and my friend Nick was playing third base, and he was like stuff that if I were to say it on this show and like you were to clip it out, they'd be like, Mike's canceled. Like it would cancel me like real fast. So I won't say what he said, but it was really bad. And
I can just imagine.
Yeah, oh my god!
I love
I'll tell you.
Jersey City.
I'll tell you after. But yeah, it was insane. Like there was that same game, that fan came over because like where the bullpens were, where we would warm up, was like where the fans were. And so he came up to me, and like I was going into pitch like the next inning, and he was like just standing on the mound with me and like talking to me. Like I was like, is anybody else seeing this? Like, can somebody just get this kid away from me? And he's like, you're gonna blow it. And I was like, okay, like thanks, man. Like I appreciate it. And he's like, you're gonna fucking blow it. And they just kept saying it. And so I go in, I don't blow it. I come out, and he comes over to me and he's like, "Hey man," he's like, "I'm really sorry." He's like, "But you know what? That's just what I have to do." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. Like, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
No problem."
Dude, sports could get so weird like that. It's so weird because now more than ever, I'm very much more of like a pacifist. Like, I'm very just like, even at times where it could get aggressive, like, I'm very just like, dude, like, relax. It's not
Yeah,
that big
like
of a
at the end of the
deal.
day, like what's the best outcome that's gonna come from going
Right.
nuts?
Right.
You
And
know?
I've never had, maybe in sports a little bit, like when I was in soccer, like I did have moments like that, but I feel like I've never had something like directly like that to me. Like I always got like in-game stuff where like, I'd play defense in soccer,
Yeah,
and like so like I might get like a dirty like, check, or
sure.
like, a dirty slide tackle or whatever, and then we'll get up and we'll be like, oh, it's part of the game, whatever,
Yeah.
right? I grew up with a lot of musical, like I grew up with classical music, and I started off playing the euphonium,
What is
which
that?
that is like a mini tuba, and that
Okay.
is what ended up getting me like a scholarship to go to Willie P.
Really?
Yeah, because like
I would imagine not many people play a euphonium.
not euphonium,
Euphonium, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My
No,
bad.
no, it's all good. It's hard. That's why a lot of people, I'm just like, it's just easy to say mini tuba or
Yeah.
baritone horn
Okay.
is something else that you could say.
Yeah.
But the most cutthroat or feel like I could relate when it comes to that is like when I would go in for my like auditions for
I
like
would
state
imagine, yeah.
bands and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, there was this girl who was blonde. She was tiny. She was the size of her euphonium. Euphonium maybe like this big. And like I'm about to go in there, and she's like, you're gonna mess up your scales, right? And I was like, yo, who the fuck? Who are you?
Who are you?
Right?
Yeah.
And she's like, no, you're gonna mess up. And it's because like, dude, the classical world of music is a weird place,
It sounds weird.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
you just finished talking to young Benny,
Yeah.
and stuff. Shout out to him too, because
Yeah, shout out Young Benny.
he comes out to we do Jersey Artist Showcase. Guy who I had on the podcast before, his name's Turkish Royale.
Is it
Yeah.
the Mad Minds thing?
Yes, the
Yeah.
Mad Minds. Yeah, I met him at Mad Minds before, and we're actually, I'm probably gonna connect with Benny at sometime soon.
Yeah, for sure. He was great. He did a great interview with me.
Yeah, dude, it was great, and hearing his story too, and hearing
Yeah.
like, you guys talk about like, just the different topics of like, him starting out, and also like too like when I interview a lot of musicians, it's very like, obviously like I'm a musician, so it's very
Sure.
music based, but it's nice to see like the different kind of like breaks you take in between and like kind of switch the conversation off and everything.
Yeah, because I think like you said, his story, and I know like how you operate too, which I love, and which is like why I was excited when you asked me to do this, and also full disclosure why I reached out. But my phone's on the other side. I swear to God.
No, it's all good, dude.
I'm gonna like throw it over there, but yeah, so like taking those breaks and like trying to get more of like the whole story, because like to me it's like obviously what he does as a rapper is like his main thing, like that's what he wants to be interviewed about, but like learning kind of how he got there is like really interesting too, because like he's a Jersey guy just like us, like grew up here and had different struggles and like all that kind of stuff. And I think like that is what helps kind of shape out some of these stories, because like you can go like, we do a lot of restaurants and bars and places like that too. And like you can go and meet the chef, and the chef might be like really good at what he or she does. And like they've even competed on Top Chef, which we've had a couple Top Chef contestants on the show too. And like, but before that, like some of them had never cooked before. Some of them have cooked like since they were 2, like for their, single mom household and all that kind of stuff. And I think like unpacking all of that and trying to like get a fuller, deeper appreciation of kind of what these people are doing is kind of like what I just really have found that I love about doing my show, kind of the way that I do it. And like those breaks were just kind of like a thing that I thought of like when I first started. At the beginning, it was the first break was always today in New Jersey history, and the second break was a New Jersey fun fact. And then I got bored like constantly trying to find New Jersey fun facts, and you'd run out of facts, I guess. And now they're just kind of like where I drop some like sponsors or whatever. But I do think it kind of like helps at least me break up that conversation a little bit. So you kind of have like the background of them, what they're doing now, and then we always like to kind of find out ways that they're involved in the community in some way, like particularly with small businesses and nonprofits, like how they interact with their communities outside of just somebody coming in and buying like a beer or whatever. Like I think like that to me kind of like helps galvanize like the audience that we have right now.
Yeah, dude, and it's wild too. I will say this, and big kudos to you because your podcast, more than anything, like when I was looking through everything and the guests you've had, number one, the guests you've had are pretty sick so far.
Yeah, I've been very lucky to have some really cool guests on so far.
yeah, for sure. I mean, like when it comes to, I mean, you had Olympians there. You also had I didn't get to watch the one with the guy from the comic book show.
Oh, Ming Chen.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I have to watch that one. I'm so
Yeah, he
excited
was
to watch
great.
that, man.
Yeah.
And it just feels so Jersey, which like it's dope to really like feel that,
Thank you.
know? I feel like
That's the best compliment I could possibly get about a show that's about Jersey, and that's like the vibe that we're going for.
Yeah, I definitely get that vibe 100%. And
Yeah.
even like the merch too that you have too, it just like looks Jersey too, man. Like and I started this very similarly. Like I started also during COVID.
Yeah.
And I believe I started April of 2020.
Okay.
And this show actually started off as segments, and we'd go into I think like 5 different segments. It would start off with like pop news, then we went into community, and that's when we'd like do a bit on like a story from the community. Like one I remember from COVID was there was this landlord in Montclair who said they don't have to pay rent for like the next month or like the next 2 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, with the money you save, spend it on local businesses. And then like that was really cool. So we did a segment on that. We did a sports segment, a music segment, and then our last segment was the Ayoo Chill segment. We call it Ayoo Chill.
Yeah.
And man, I sometimes I hate talking about our first podcast that we did because they were so awkward or like
Dude,
I don't
like my first forays into podcasting were literally like I'll show you a video after, but it's literally like me and another person on a Zoom call. Like we both have all our shit written down, so we're 2 people reading to each other on a Zoom, which was like, as you can imagine, is electric content, you know. But people, it was crazy. Like I look back at those and they're like so cringy, terrible, and like I have like my hair is all stupid because like I couldn't get a haircut. Like now I just shave my head, but like the beard was getting all crazy, even though it's kind of crazy anyway now. But it was just like, and I would wear like a suit jacket with like a tie sometimes and just like really try to make it look professional. And then I look at it now and I'm just like, oh my God, that's so bad. Because now like on a mic, it's whatever. Like I don't care.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It takes a little bit to like really sink into it. And I
Yeah.
don't think people realize how much time it actually takes to sink into it. And matter of fact, like this year, I feel like is kind of like the first year where I'm finally more relaxed with it because it took me a while to actually find what kind of vibe I'm going for.
Yeah.
Sometimes I still struggle with that because, you know, sometimes I just want to kick back with the musician and be like, you know, just talk like bullshit. But other times I'm like, hey, like tell me like what is your business plan when it comes to music? Like, are you serious about this? Are you like what are you doing behind the scenes? Like what does a day in your life, what does a week in your life look like?
Yeah.
And coming up with better questions to ask and becoming better at just conversating was
Yeah.
a difficult road to get into.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Like while those first, so I did the LinkedIn video show. Like so, they were 5-minute segments, and then so we released one every weekday and we did that for 12 weeks. So we did 60 total episodes in 12 weeks, which was that's a lot.
Yeah.
And then eventually kind of transitioned that old show into like what a more traditional podcast. But I look back at those 60 and as cringy as they are, as bad as they are, like at least in my opinion now, like 300 whatever episodes into like all the shows I've ever done, like I needed to do those.
Yeah.
Like, and like you early stuff, like I'm sure like the way that you kind of broke it up at the beginning, it might have felt really awkward, but that's why what you do now is really good because you put those reps in. It's like sports or music or whatever. It's the same kind of thing. Like the more reps you can put in, the more time, and like you just kind of like keep that cadence going. Like to me, that is what kind of gets you to the next level of like you said, feeling comfortable, not almost as like a interviewer, but just as like somebody that can just talk to someone.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because I think it for me, like before podcasting, I was like so shy and like not engaging at all. Like I'd sit, like by myself, like as whenever possible. Do you think that you were like that before? And if so, has podcasting and doing it more this way made you better at doing stuff like in your real life?
I was actually completely opposite.
Okay.
Since a little kid, I love talking to everybody.
Yeah.
Actually, when my mom would take me to the bank every week, and I forget what she had to do, but I'd be waiting in line, and literally, the like while we were in line, I would turn to the person behind us, and I'd just be like, "Hey, my name's Luis," or like Beto. I go by Beto, but my name is Luis. My
Yeah.
name. And then I'd be like, "Yeah, how was your day? Like, what are you doing?" And I was like 5,
Yeah.
and I'd just be talking to random strangers, and they'd always be super surprised, and it never occurred to me like I was really just I was thankfully like blindsided as a kid, like to like racism or anything. And like there was even times where like we had a next door neighbor that lived next to my house, and my dad swears he was a little bit racist. I never got that from him because he
Yeah.
ended up being my best friend.
Okay.
Because when my family moved in, he didn't talk to my family at all. He didn't acknowledge them or anything. And he had a grill that was posted up right against the fence. And he'd grill there like every day. And
Just
I
like
was,
staring at your house.
yeah, like just doing things, and it was up right towards my house. And
Okay.
I was a little kid, and I was maybe like 6 or something, and I went up to him, and I was like, "Hey, my name's Luis. Like, how are you doing?" And he would ignore me, and I would go to him every day, and I'd just be like, and then one day I was just like, "Mister, you don't have a tongue? Can you not talk?" And then one day he
Yeah.
broke, and he was like, "Hey, how you doing, man?" And he's like, "My name's Bob." What a crazy, like just Bob, like, his actual name.
Sounds like a
But
Bob.
yeah, and he's like, "Yeah, my name's Bob." And then we talked and talked and talked, and he ended up moving. Actually recently, like a couple years ago. But like every time I saw him, he was like, "Hey, how's college? How's this? How's that?"
Yeah.
And then we would talk, and he was really cool. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. That's my long answer to your
Yeah.
question. My
But isn't
bad.
it crazy though that like when you started doing the show, like you said, I mean, like whether it was like the way that you broke it up or whatever, but just starting to do the show was like you felt awkward doing it. Where
Yeah.
like in real life conversations you're not. And like to me, that was like the hurdle that I needed to get over was just like turn it into a real life conversation. You know what I mean?
I think my biggest problem when I was coming into it was actually trying to look for the conversations and like learning how to articulate what's in my brain,
Yeah.
and ask it in a way where the other person would understand.
Right.
And I think also when I started, it was very much, for lack of better words, it was just very just like fuckboy energy, you
Yeah.
know? Like I felt like every show or every conversation somehow would like lead into like a sexual conversation somehow. And I was just, and like, you know, after like the first 7 episodes, I was just like, dude, like we're talking about all this like real stuff, sports, whatever, music and all this stuff. And then we'll get to the AO chill segment. We'll try to stay on topic, but then we start talking about cheeks.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, dude, like we can't do this every show. I mean, this can't be the only thing that's on our brain, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
And at that point, like, you know, that's when I was really like, okay, like let me start doing some research on the people that we actually bring in.
Yeah.
Or like, let me like try to find out more about these people so I could actually like ask some cool questions and not just like, hey, like, when's the last time you smashed? And
Yeah,
then
right.
go from there. You
Yeah.
know?
Is that later in the show?
Maybe, I don't know.
We'll see
This
where
show
it
could go
goes.
a lot of different
Yeah,
places.
I know, but that's also the cool thing too, because like if you listen to one of my episodes or like I listen to one of yours or whatever, like the way my brain works too is like I'll listen and I'll be like, ooh, that's something that I'm really interested in learning more about this person. But you may find something else in that answer or that conversation that you're really interested in, and they go 2 totally different ways, like the butterfly effect, you know.
Yeah.
And then by the end, because like as a podcaster, like ultimately you're a storyteller, right? But you're telling, like you're trying to tell my story, but you have to get me there.
Yes.
Like whatever that version of my story is, which I think is just like it's so fascinating to me. Like I think it's just so cool, and I don't, you know, other people may not think it's that cool, but I really don't care. But yeah, it's just like something to me that's just like it's so cool to kind of watch how certain podcasters or interviewers or radio hosts or anybody that talks to someone for a living like gets from A to B, like the start of the show to the end of the show, and like what that final product looks like for anybody is going to be like so different with that same person, you know?
Yeah. No, I definitely feel that. And, you know, I think when it comes to, actually, I think this is a good little pivoting point. What is your advice to podcasters who are trying to get that story, or just in general, how to get better at interviewing and just talking to people?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I would say, like I had this one woman on my old show, Carrie Barrett, who lives in Sparta. She's like a former Emmy-winning like news broadcaster on NY whatever, and like she would talk about this thing about how like when you're listening to someone's answers, like it's really important to kind of listen to like the whole thing, because like they may say like, and that was what really drove me crazy towards the end of doing my original like scripted show, was like somebody would be like, my mother was born on Venus and my dad was born on Mars, and then I'd be like, okay, and how is your business dealing with the pandemic? And people are like, what the fuck, like why didn't you ask about Mars and Venus?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like to me, like I try, in if at all possible, to talk as little as possible on like my show, simply because I like to kind of see like where, like let it breathe, just like let them go, let them talk about what they are there to promote or talk about, or themselves or whatever. And then like as I'm sitting there, like I'm just listening and trying to pick up on like a couple different buzz words or buzz phrases or whatever that like I find really interesting, because at the end of the day it's just like whatever you're curious about, like that's what your listeners are going to be the most into, because like they're listening to you because they have similar interests to you, and like the people that you talk to, they listen to me because same thing, you know what I mean? Like the people that I'm interested in, ultimately like my listeners hopefully are interested in, like that's why I pick them, that's why you pick your guests. And so like the more curious you are and like the more engage with that conversation you are, because like when you get excited about stuff, it makes your audience excited about stuff, makes the guest excited about stuff, and like that is kind of where it all, at least in my opinion, it's very like, you know, like what do you call that, like it's very big picture kind of, like it's not like a very specific type of thing, but it's just like whatever you're curious about, you'll get excited about, or you'll make a guest about excited about, and that'll just make your audience that much more excited about what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, I think you have a lot of good points there that you brought up. One of the ones that kind of stuck with me was you saying not talking as much, because that's actually something that I used to do really bad. I feel like in the beginning of the second season,
Yeah.
where I just couldn't stop. Sometimes when I'm very comfortable, I start just going off. There's a couple of sometimes it's also the vibe of the podcast too.
Yeah.
Sometimes like you just gotta feel it out, because I've had guests before who are just like, just tell me about like something, and I'll be like, oh, I was like, this is my turn. Even when you asked me a question before, I was
Yeah.
like, this is so fun.
I love flipping like as a guest, because like to me guesting is like the easiest thing to ever do.
Yeah.
On a podcast at least, because like I don't have to do any of the actual heavy lifting, like you actually have to think of all the actual questions. But I love like in an interview just to be like, ask you a question, because how often does that happen? But I think like again, like that's what makes it more conversational, because like I'm interested in what you do. Like I reached out because I think what you do is awesome, you know what I mean? So like to me that makes me excited, and hopefully that makes you excited. But yeah, like that's really what it is.
Yeah, dude, I'm actually having a great time. I love. I don't. You're the second podcaster that I've had on the show. The only one other when I had his name was Sully Bob. Shout out to Bobcast. He's great. He kind of does a similar thing where he's just interviewing entrepreneurs, musicians. He's had a lot of cool people on his show, and he's actually out. Oh man, I forget what part of Jersey he's in, but he's in the sticks. He's like all the way west. I feel like maybe 20 minutes away from Allentown, 30
Yeah.
minutes away from Allentown.
Yep.
But he's great. And I don't know, there's just like an energy when you just talk to people who know. You know, sometimes
Yeah.
it's hard too, because you'll get a guest. Well, I don't actually know. No, I'm not. I haven't watched any ones that maybe you've had this with, but I feel like sometimes you get a guest who is just like very closed.
Yes.
And you have to keep poking at them until they're almost like, oh my God. After 30 minutes in, they're like, oh yeah, this and this and that.
Yeah.
And they finally start moving. How do you go about like picking your guests? How do you go about like organizing that?
Organizing, that's funny. So that's a really good question. So like at the beginning, because I was doing a lot of like primarily local businesses, they would be businesses that like I would go to. So like I had, whether it was just like I knew like a server there, or like had some relationship with them, and it may just be me going and like, you know, drinking there, eating there, you know, whatever, like seeing them around Morristown, because I live in Morristown. Like so like a lot of my early guests were like in that area. And then like as the show started to kind of like expand and the audience started to grow and our reach started to grow, obviously like I get pitched quite a bit to like come on the show, and some are fits and some are honestly not, and I feel sometimes bad about saying that at the same time, but like my listeners are expecting like a certain type of guest to come on, and like I've had a couple in the past that like now I would never have on, just because, and I'm not gonna say who they are, but for a variety of reasons also. But like they just like don't really fit the vibe of like what the show is all about right now. Like we're just talking to cool people in Jersey and like seeing what's up and trying different things and going different places. So for me, it's like I like to think that I am kind of in tune with like the episodes that do well, the episodes that people enjoy. And so then I try to find more of those types of, places or people or whatever. So like there's no like set like criteria that you have to hit outside of like you live in Jersey, but like at the same time, like if I don't know, if like a famous person that's famously from Jersey and like loves Jersey but just doesn't live here anymore is like I would like love to come on your show. Like let's just say like Danny DeVito. Like
Oh my God,
he doesn't
that'd
live
be
in
crazy,
yeah, I don't think he lives in Jersey anymore, but he's from Asbury Park or like Neptune or whatever down there. And so like he was like, "Oh, I'll come on your show." I'm not gonna say no to Danny DeVito. Like, are you kidding? But at the same time, like, so there's no set criteria of like what it is, but I just kind of have like a feeling, and like I'll watch a lot of their like social content. Like Instagram is where I basically do all my work and finding guests, communicating with guests, pre and post. All that kind of stuff, and like seeing kind of how they interact with their own respective audiences is really important too, because if they don't, or like they either don't use it, or they're like, you can just kind of tell like they don't really have like a personality. Then that sounds also terrible. But
No, but this is real. This is real stuff
Yeah.
that you're laying down.
right, but then like so then I have to kind of parse all that out, and then eventually figure out like who's going to be a good fit for the show, and then reach out, and if I get an answer that's a yes, then great, and we'll move forward and get it set up and whatever. But at the same time, like sometimes I don't ever hear back. Sometimes people say it's not for them, which is also cool. But yeah, so like there's really no set like way I pick my guests. Selfishly, I also like to go to places that I really want to eat at, or like whatever, like maybe places that are a little bit outside of my price range, or that kind of stuff is always fun to try a different type of place. But then, to me, it's the after is what like the most important with all of those guest stars, like maintaining those relationships like with them,
Yes.
moving forward. So like I know you have guests that come back on the show sometimes. Like I haven't done that yet, just because like there's so many. Like I only have 52 episodes a year, right? And there's like so many different types of things that I can do like in Jersey with different people and all that kind of stuff. So I have to be very selective on who makes that year-long list. But at the same time, like having a good relationship with those people after the actual episode is also really important, because I try to do stuff that like engages with that community. It's like we've run parties before. We did an anniversary party for the show back in October, and we had like 110 people show up for that. And
That's
like
sick,
we had
dude.
people like guests donating. I think we had close to like 30 guests donate raffle prizes. Just like gave them to me, and it was a free event. You didn't have to pay for anything. The only thing you had to pay for were the beers that you drank at the brewery. I think like 6 or 7 guests brought food. Like all sorts of stuff. Like my barbecue place donated like a whole bunch of stuff. Daddy Maddie's in Madison, shout out to them. Like Marcelli Formaggi donated like a whole charcuterie board with like all like these imported Italian cheeses, like amazing stuff. But like it only happens because the people that I find and the people that I have on the show that I maintain those relationships with, like I can just feel it, like I feel like they're part of like my same energy vortex or whatever. So like the people that are kind of like in my circle, are also people that listen to the show, that guest on the show, that I like try to go on other shows about. And so like when I do that, that kind of makes like those relationships even more than just simply like us sitting down and recording an episode. It's like it's way more than that. Like I'll go and, be like, hey, I'm in, fill in the blank town. Like what are you doing? Like, let's go grab a drink. Let's have lunch. Let's do whatever. Like I try to do that as much as humanly possible, which is tough, but I try to do it just because like that's important to me, because it's a community based show. You know what I mean?
There's so many good things that you said there. I'm a hop to one thing, and we'll come back to maintaining relationships, because that's very important. Being selective with your podcast and who you have as guests is such a touchy subject,
I know.
man. And it's something that I've been struggling with now. I remember at a point when I started, and we were talking off camera before about like how I used to do this at Willie P and sneak into their rooms, and I would trick people into like coming into the podcast and stuff. And I'd be like, yeah, I have a studio, whatever.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times it was friends too. And if they weren't friends, it was like, me lying or like, like a little white lies, but they still
Sure.
got what they got. And I remember a time where I was begging people to come on the podcast. Like
Yeah.
I was begging them.
Yeah.
I was just like,
I was in the
"Tell me."
same boat.
Yeah. And then now, I've been super blessed since I've started getting really into like the music scene.
Yeah.
I started getting some like bigger artists on the show where it's like, wow, there's like now I have like 50 people, 60 people who are all asking to come on the podcast. I'm like, this is so great. And when it first happened, it was almost like maybe the correct way to say it is like an ego boost,
Yeah.
right? Because you're like, oh my God, look at all these people want to come on the show. That lasted about a couple of days, because then after I realized, I was like, wow, I have all these people want to come on the show, and then I was running into the same problem where I have some people come on the show, and it's like, I think this is the first time I'm gonna like say numbers on the podcast, but doing this whole setup with everything I have invested here, and I've never charged any of my guests ever for a podcast.
Me neither.
Ever.
Nice. I love that.
This setup takes about anywhere from 600 to 800 to put together every time. Now, I'm not saying that I spend that money every time I do a
Sure.
podcast.
Yeah.
But from the mics, the lighting, to the camera, to everything that's put together in the editing studio to put together, that's just baseline of what it would cost to rent all this equipment.
Yeah, 100%. Because you got like high ends, like these mics and these boom arms. I'm jealous because I love boom arms. I just think it makes me so legit. I feel like Howard Stern, you know? Like I just have like the little desktop stand because I can't be like hooking it up to people's tables or whatever. And like the camera and the light, like all this stuff. I mean, it's like next level type, like
Yeah, dude.
professional stuff.
I appreciate it. And it's taken so long and like so much like, time and money to just slowly invest and get it better and better.
And you see that too. Like I was like scrolling through the Instagram page or the YouTube channel, and like the early ones, like to where you are now, like in like different iterations of kind of like what the studio looks like and what mics you're using, like all that kind of stuff. I just think it's so cool to kind of watch the trajectory of kind of how it all kind of comes together at the very end.
Yeah, I appreciate that, dude. And I don't know, dude. It's also like the amount of hours it takes. Like I started doing time lapses of like me making like the YouTube thumbnails, the reels now that I make, editing the audio. Like I just that alone, hour wise, if I'm paying myself like $20 an hour, which is minimum for an editor, it's just like it's another $400. So now it's like $1,000 almost that I invest in every podcast that I do.
Yeah.
And so when you take out numbers wise, and you have someone who's guesting on your show and their, I guess, ROI of like, it's not even like a return of interest on like, like just like a couple likes or like even like just to share it, like, and sometimes it's not even about the numbers, but it's also like how excited my guest is also to show what we've done on social media.
Right.
Like I've had guests before where they've come on, I've put on this whole thing, and I do my best and I put hours and hours of labor and work into this, and they don't share a reel.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I think I agree that is super frustrating. But I think at the end of the day, like, I want people, like you said, that are as excited about this episode as me. Like, and sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't happen. But then also at the end of the day, like, I go into it with super low expectations because, and like, I've also noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed this either, but like, sometimes the ones that have the bigger follower accounts are the ones that get the least amount of listens or views, which is interesting, like an interesting sociological experiment. However, I do think it's a thing where people, like, I don't expect like the bigger, follower count to share because it's like not as important to them. Like I've also noticed the smaller guest is always sharing and like always following up to like, can we do more? Can we do more? Can we do more? Because they were like super excited that I gave them that platform that I've like built out. So like, it's always kind of like like a delicate balance. Like you obviously need it because the whole point is to leverage two different audiences. Like right now you're going to leverage your audience and my audience to hopefully build up both of our audiences.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole point. That's the reason why I'm here.
Mhm.
It's like more people can learn about you and more people can learn about me. And, you know, like that is like really what it kind of comes down to. And, you know, like it's frustrating for sure. But at the end of the day, it's like if you love it, you just keep toiling
Yeah.
away, because like the ones that do and like really want to engage with your stuff and like really want to, you know, talk more about it or like share more stuff, or like they ask for the one we dropped this week is a comedian, Jordan Freed. Like he's been messaging me constantly, like, can you send me the reel? Can you send me this? Can you send me your logos? I'm going to put up an Instagram post. I'm going to go put it on my website. I'm going to go send it out in our mailing list. Like that kind of stuff is awesome to me,
Yeah.
you know, like, and that's, you know, like that episode will do really well. And like it'll serve the purpose of what he did it for. Like that's why he reached out to me to come on the show. And I think like that's really what it's all about. Like you want people that are as excited as you are, and it's frustrating sometimes when people like don't match that energy.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you know, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's just about showing the love too, because
Yeah.
I think what a lot of people don't understand is like I stopped doing any booking through like my DM.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's like an exception, like for you example, because when I saw podcasts, like I don't get to see too many people from Jersey
Yeah.
who have podcasts. So I'm just like, yeah, of course, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
And I stopped doing it through DMs because there was also like a way to like, I feel like some people like approach very weirdly. Like some people are just like,
Also true.
yeah, like some people are just like, oh, what's up? Or they're like, hey, you need to have me on your dude, that is my biggest like ick when it comes to podcasting, man. It's like, you need to have me on your podcast. That's it. Like, when are we booking?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, dude, number one, I don't know you.
Right.
And I feel like, I mean, think about it. We're both Jersey heads. If someone came up on the street to you and said, you need to give me money, like, give it. Like, I'd be like, who are you, dude?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, I'd just be mad cold shoulder, you know?
Yeah.
It's just how, you know, you grow up in Jersey. Like, I'm just getting frustrated. I'm just talking about
Podcasting is awesome. Is really what we're coming down to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's like, to me, it's like, and I think that's where it goes back to being like, I'm going to put selective in air quotes for people that are just listening to the audio version of this, but like selective in a sense where you can weed out people like that. And like at the beginning when you were like begging people to come on and like, you know, manipulating them to like follow you into this room and on campus.
You're making it sound so bad.
But like, you know, so like I was there too. Like I would take anybody at the beginning, like both shows that I've started. And then once it kind of got legs and like started, you know, gaining momentum and gaining like an audience and like all that kind of stuff, same thing happened. I started getting flooded with inquiries about, you know, who would come, like the people that wanted to come on the show. And I've gotten plenty of those. Like I got like a random email about like a liquidation company in like South Amboy or something like that. And it was just like that. It was like, you know, I think this would be a great story. I need to come on your show. And I was like, I didn't even respond because he didn't even sign his name on it. I was like, I don't even know who this person is. But like, to me, it's just like you get to a point where it becomes more difficult because you have more people to kind of parse through, but you also have the liberty to kind of weed out the people that you know right out of the gate are not going to be a good fit because of whatever that reason is, you know, like, and I always like to also try to see if they have been interviewed on other shows, like what their interactions have been with, like Benny, when you have Benny on, he's going to be great. Like they share that stuff like crazy and his episode did well. You know, like other people haven't and their episodes don't do as well, but that's like where that all kind of comes into is like, you know, it's like a blessing and a curse because you have more stuff to do and more work to do, but you also have a deeper pool to pick from to make sure that the people that you have on continue to like bring the same energy that you have about like what you're doing. I feel like it's like a therapy session.
Yeah, dude. That's what these usually like end up being. You know what? I do have a question. Have you ever had to, number one, delete an episode? And what's kind of like the follow-up question there to like just keep you thinking is like, have you ever been close to being like canceled or anything like that?
I've never been close to being, well, let me start over. I'll answer your first question first. I had one episode that I did of my old show that has never seen the light of day, only because I did my old show a lot for my full-time job because I would have like a lot of real estate professionals and, you know, people in that world. And I guested on this one guy's show. and it was like a really awkward experience. It was like 15 minutes, and you were kind of getting like herded through virtually, like cattle. So like I was sitting in like a back room, and then next thing I know, like I'm on the show. He's doing his intro. Like he didn't even say hello. Like before we even started, he was like, "Just make sure you're here at this time, and we'll go." So it was like 15 minutes, done, boom. Then later on, maybe like a week or two later, he reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, because I had you on my show, like I need to come on yours." And I was like, similar situation. Like I was like, okay, because like I didn't know at that point like what I had with that old show, and so I did. The episode was fine. We started doing work together. Like he was, buying some property in like Michigan or something like that, and like I was having he ran some of the work through me, and I was having some of our people out there work on it. He was such an asshole to them, to the point where like he made women cry. Like he was like screaming at them on the phone. He'd call me screaming, and I'm like, I don't work in Michigan. I can't help you. I live in New Jersey. Like stuff like that. It was like next level, just being an asshole just for the sake of being like that guy.
That's
And
terrible.
yeah, and so I was like, I never, like they finished it up. Like I never asked them to pay me or whatever like that I was owed from that particular deal, because I just felt so bad, and it was to be so embarrassing to ask for like a few $100s. And I was like, I can't be associated with this guy, so like I will never post this episode. So like that was the only episode that I've ever done, outside of like a couple where like I eventually stopped doing my old show, and like I had a couple in the can that just like never made it. And it wasn't because they were bad episodes. It was just like I was so burned out with that old show that I just like to do all the editing for like all those episodes, like you were saying before.
Yeah.
It just like it wasn't in me, and I just like reached out and I was like, I'm sorry, like it's just this one's not gonna happen because this show doesn't produce episodes anymore. I've never been close to being canceled because like I said, I try to talk as little as possible. The only time I got like trolls in my comments on Instagram was my most watched Instagram reel ever. I think it got like close to like 50,000 views. Was we did the Seeing Eye in Morristown, which is like where they train the Seeing Eye dogs.
Word.
And part of the episode was I was blindfolded with a dog, and we had the trainer there, like the head trainer of the Seeing Eye. And my friend Thomas is a videographer, so he was like filming it all, and like we were mic'd up and whatever. And we were walking down the street, and we were like talking, and obviously like there's things happening. Like Thomas is literally running, and like there's another woman from the Seeing Eye like making sure he doesn't get hit by a car or like run into trees or like parking meters and stuff. So she's like guiding him. He's like running down because the dog is fast as shit. Like I was like felt like I was running, and I'm like I'm gonna run right into something, but I didn't, except for once, but at the very end. But like so obviously they said there's something going on. Like we're filming this, like this is and we're walking down the street, and this one guy just like yelled out, and it was a nice comment. He was just like, "Hey, God bless you for all you guys do. Like, have a great day, whatever." And then Brian, the trainer, was like, "Oh, thank you so much." And I just like I didn't see who he was. Like I didn't know like how close or far away, because I can't see. Like I'm blindfolded. So I just made a comment. I'm like, "Oh, look at that." I was like, people just trying to get on the episode. I was like, "What a freeloader." Just like a joke. And like I had like a bunch of people in that reel. Like so many people were just like, "Oh my God, this is so great." Blah, blah, blah. A couple people were just like, "You're a fucking clown," or whatever. Just shut up and take the compliment and like all this kind of stuff. But I feel like anytime you reach like a larger like audience on anything, whether it's just like a one specific reel or just like overall as like a entity, like a show or an Instagram profile or whatever, like that's gonna happen, and it's but it's at the end of the day, it's like the people that like say negative things, like shout the loudest, like I'm sure there's a saying about that. It's like but the people that are like consistently supporting you, you just like tend to just kind of accept that they're always gonna be there. And then when you get the negative one, you're just like, oh my God. And then but since then it's really been mostly positive. Like I don't,
Yeah, that's how I feel too. Trolls are hilarious.
Yeah.
I think so far, I mean, for me, man, I mean, I also used to like make music. I still make music now, but I haven't released a song in years.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. And this is perfect, kind of sliding into Jersey a little bit. I made a promo video, and this is back my sophomore year of college, maybe. So this is maybe like 2018, and I made a promo video of I had a bunch of stickers of the music cover of the song.
Yeah.
And I was in Newark, and we were right in front of the Prudential Center. We were watching a Devils game.
Yeah.
And when we got out, I was like, "Hey guys, it would be cool if you just filmed a video of me slapping this sticker onto this light pole." And like I made, basically the shot is me walking past the light pole. I slap the sticker on the light pole, and then the camera zooms into the sticker. Right?
Yeah.
Boom, and my song plays.
Marketing.
Yeah, marketing. Right? I was like, boom, this is gonna be great. Everyone's gonna listen to my song.
Yeah.
So I did that.
Everyone that goes to everyone who goes to Prudential Center, they're gonna see that sticker.
And they're gonna see that sticker,
Yeah.
right? So, and this is right when Instagram started for paid promotions,
Okay.
right? And so the video, I released the video, and then I was like, okay, I'll put like $10 into it, and I'll start promoting it to everybody like around my town, and also like Newark. I don't know why. I was just like, Newark, it's a cool
Sure.
place.
Yeah.
So I posted there. Some guy comments, and he's like, if I ever see you in my fucking city, I'm going to hunt you down. I'll beat you up, get your shitty ass music off our streets and all this stuff. And I was like, damn. But you know what? It almost feels good sometimes because I don't know. I'm under the mentality that like I study a lot of like the algorithms and how they work
Sure.
within like social media and everything. It's like all comments or anything help you with the algorithm and
Yeah.
pushing out your stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is great, and I'll just laugh at it so hard.
Yeah, we did a TikTok last year. I had a couple girls helping me with some content last year,
Mm-hmm.
and just like volunteering to do it. And this one girl, she lives like down in like Monmouth County. She just did like a TikTok of like a day at the Jersey Shore, and this one guy, Wally or Walter or whatever the fuck his name was just like, it's so expensive, and like, you know, I can go to an all inclusive blah 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 in the Caribbean for the same price that it would be to go to fill in the blank shore town. And like just like really just like being negative just because like there was really no, it was just her just documenting kind of like what they did that day, and it was like a cute, you know, easy, real, whatever. Like no, they didn't even talk in it. And so like I took it upon myself to comment back, and I was like, oh, you sound like you would be a really fun hang at like a party or something, like just, you know, playing with them, because like you said, the more that they comment back
Yeah.
and the more that they hate on it is like the more it's gonna push it in front of more people that are actually gonna like it. So that's like why when you get those like, you read those comments like on Instagram, I was like, send to blah 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 promotion, like all those, you know, like those are fun too, because sometimes it'll be like Connecticut promo or whatever, and I'm just like, I'll comment back because obviously there's no one behind that. It's just an automated thing, and I'll just be like, read the room. This is a Jersey account, not a Connecticut account. You know, like stuff like that. It's just, but all those help. You know,
Yeah.
so like whatever, comment away.
I actually have an interesting question for you that maybe you've only experienced as a podcaster on Instagram.
Yeah.
Have you gotten like the weird overseas like Malaysian or Indian like promoter people
Oh, all the
who
time.
like hit you up?
Yeah.
Have you ever taken the time to talk to one of them?
No, because it just, I don't know. I don't have enough time.
Last maybe like 4 months ago, I took the time, and I don't know, I'm very polite about it, right? So
Yeah.
they'll message me, and they're like, hey, you know, like can I do promotion for your thing? And you know, I'm of the mindset where I'm like, pitch yourself to me. Like, don't just, you know, just tell me, hey, you're gonna get me like 10K followers.
Yeah.
I was like, and he's like, oh, I'll do like all natural, all this stuff, and they'll give you like the same pitch, right? I'm like, prove it to me.
Yeah.
And then we get into it, and he's like, oh no, I promise, like, I can get you up to 10K or whatever. And I was like, all right, but how are you gonna do it naturally? Like, I'm started asking questions. And then so we keep going forward and forward into this conversation. He's like, please. He's like, I'm just trying to feed my family. And I was like, damn. I was like, this is
Hit
getting
you where it,
yeah,
hit you
like,
where it hurts.
this is getting real. And
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry. And I was and he was Muslim, I think. And then so like we started like kind of like pitching back and forth, like I guess man, I forget the words that they call some of these Muslim prayers, but I've been kind of getting into like different religions, and
You're a really worldly guy. I'm like really impressed. Like, you do
thanks,
so much
dude.
shit.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate
Like
it.
all your jobs that you do, like all these people that you're interacting with, it's like, it's incredible.
I just love people.
Yeah,
I
I can
I
tell.
just love talking to people. And oh man, I forget the word. If you're Muslim, let me know what the word is. But they have different prayers and set prayers that's in the Quran. So I started sending them to him and I was like, yo, Allah bless you, like peace be with you and everything. Like I'm wishing you the best, but I don't trust you.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to send any money because I don't know what it's going to.
Right.
So then he started sending me pictures of like where he's from and all this stuff, and we were talking back and forth like for a while.
This is amazing.
And we were just like we were talking back and forth, and then at some point he just stopped messaging me.
Yeah.
But like I don't know, it was just very interesting. Like because most of these promoter people, I would always tell them the same thing. I was like, pitch it to me, and then like he was the only one who was like a couple weeks later, like after we had the conversation, he's like, hey, he's like, I just want to say like Allah be with you and all this stuff, and he would send me some of these like proverbs, and I'm like, yeah, dude, like me too, like dude, it's the same way to you. I was like, have you figured out the like how you're gonna like do this all natural? And he's like, no.
So at the end of the day,
like, at the end of the day, he was probably trying to, maybe he was trying to scam me. I don't know, but I'd like to believe, I'm very, like I said, love first.
Right.
So,
yeah. Love first. Yeah. That's very non-Jersey of you, though.
Why don't we switch the gears a little bit then? Let's talk about Jersey, because let me tell you, I haven't gotten to just have a full conversation about Jersey, I think, with anybody on the podcast. Like I've talked about Jersey, like, but I've told people back and forth that I live by Jersey, I die by Jersey. I've seen all my friends move. I have friends now who are making like unexpected moves too.
Yeah.
And all of them like, come back and they're like, I don't know how I feel about Jersey and this and that. And there's some outlandish things I say about Jersey that I stick by, that I really stick by. I tell people, I'm like, you can find the number 2 best thing in the country in Jersey. I was like, I don't care like where you find it, but there's always like when it comes to food, like maybe like obviously Texas has the best Texas barbecue, but you could find someone in Jersey who could probably make some banging ass Texas barbecue that like outside of Texas, we have the best Texas barbecue.
That's a really interesting perspective, because like people outside Texas don't do Texas barbecue.
Yeah.
Except for Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
And there's just so much culture in Jersey. There's so much like different things that people, I feel like sometimes a lot of people too, they stick to their little Jersey kind of like sector sometimes. And especially when it comes to the city, like Jersey City, Newark, Patterson. I mean, Patterson's where I was born, like they don't leave and they don't realize that there's like beautiful like just cornfields down in South Jersey. I worked for an ice cream company for a while, and
of course you did.
And I delivered ice cream around the state during COVID. Actually, I left my job at Cinnabon. I was a manager at Cinnabon.
Okay,
I left it to deliver ice cream for this company.
Heavy in the desserts.
Yeah,
at that
heavy,
point in your
heavy
life.
in the desserts. Just diabetes all the way, man. That was my job for a while.
Yeah,
and so I would go in these trucks, and I would go all the way to like Marlboro. I think the most south I got, like I would deliver ice cream to like Allstead Farms, I think they're called.
Okay.
There's also another one like that has an Apple logo or whatever, but I would go to all these places and I'd be like, oh my God, like some of these people are like country people. Like they're like completely different accent, like they act different, and they're like their way, and just like, and to be like, yo, you're born and bred Jersey, because I would tell them, I'm like, yo, I'm Jersey till I die.
Right.
And they'd be like, I'm Jersey till I die. And I'm like, but you're different.
Yeah, right. But that's, to me, and I've said this so many times on my show, is like that is my favorite thing about Jersey, because where else can you go and like see someone that, for lack of a better term, could be considered like a redneck, right? Like someone that you would see like in the South, or like someone that you would see just like in an entirely different part of the country, but they're here and they're as proud to be from Jersey as you are. But like to me, it's like the most densely populated state in the country, obviously, but also like one of the most diverse populations in the country, as far as like, state by state. And so like you're just around like so many people that have like that same, point of pride that they're from the same place, but they have a total, like you and I have a lot of love for Jersey, but we have a totally different background, upbringing, culture, whatever. We live pretty close. We have a lot of the same interests. Like we're from the same place, and we just find that common ground. Like you could be, whatever it is, like if like your pizza, your bagels, your Taylor ham, pork roll, whatever debate, like all that kind of stuff. Like it's all part of it, but then it's like the way that you got there is like so different from and like it's just hard to explain, but it's just like that's what doing my show and like watching your show and seeing the types of people that roll through this studio and like other places that you've been is like that's what's so cool about it. Is like there's so many different types of people, different types of cultures, different types of like, you know, like whatever it is. It just, to me, that what makes it so cool, and like what makes those conversations that I have like always really interesting, like with whatever person I'm having on the show.
You know, and I'll slide that right back at you, because I think one of the things that made your show feel so Jersey to me too was the fact that you go to these places
Yeah.
and you talk to them. And that's actually something that I actually wanted to start implementing to my show a little bit, because don't get me wrong, I love this one-on-one. It's great for conversations.
Yeah.
But like, you know, just being out there and like seeing the places in Jersey and just feeling it, you know, I feel like that's so crazy. And why don't we switch it up a little bit? I want to ask you some Jersey questions,
Okay.
and just like get your input on it.
All right, I'll do my best.
I think the first one would have to be your top 3 beaches in Jersey.
Okay, so I go to Asbury Park a lot, so I'm going to put that one first. It may not be the best beach, but it is my favorite shore town because of all the stuff that it has.
Yeah.
I like LBI because it's very like an intimate, more like slower, you know, a little bit quieter, like more family oriented at certain parts of the day. And then like Wildwood is always one that I don't go to a lot. Like we did an episode down there over the summer, and like it's huge. It's like the longest beach ever to like get from like the boardwalk all the way to you know, the actual ocean. But it is like we were talking about before, it is an entirely different group of people that go to Wildwood than it is to LBI, than it is to Asbury. Like they're like all 3 of them are so unique in like their own little way, or in sometimes big ways. So I would go with those 3. And cause like I also am really pale and burn easily, so I don't spend a ton of time on the beach. I'm trying to be more of a beach guy now, because especially like last summer and the summer before, where there was like, you know, like not so much last summer, I guess the summer before, where like you really couldn't do like a lot of normal things because of, you know, the world and what was happening. I started spending more time on the beach, and like started to appreciate like being on a beach and like being relaxed, and, you know, just like taking it in and whatever. Like to me, it's like it's a newfound thing, but those are just 3 that I would say that I've enjoyed in my time going to the shore more often, especially recently. Do you have your top 3? Are any of my top 3 in your top 3?
Actually, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Two of yours are.
Wow. All right. Which
actually.
ones?
So my number 1. Actually, maybe I'll go for number 3. I'll go from number 3 to number
from
1.
I didn't put mine in any except for Asbury number 1. The other 2 were just kind of like 2A, 2B.
Wildwood is number 3.
Okay.
Because I don't know. Wildwood is like, you're a thought if you go to Wildwood. Like, oh my God, I love it. I love it. It's like the perfect thing when you're like, when people say dirty Jersey,
Wildwood,
you know what I mean? But it's like, dude, that's my home, bro. That's I feel for it. Like, I don't care if you call it dirty. That's where I be.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I kind of piggyback. Well, I guess I'll go to the second one. Second one is Asbury, right? Second one is Asbury. I mean, it's the same thing, dude. I love around the music culture there. You know, Bruce Springsteen and doing his stuff in the Stone Pony out there. You know, like it's just I love history, and even seeing the old building that's now like
convention hall,
bunch of the convention hall, and like the casinos that used to be there. So dope.
Yeah. There's also like a heavy indie music or indie artist scene in obviously Asbury, and like that's the other reason why I love it too, because like you can go wherever. Like, I mean, the yacht club's not there anymore, but just like on the boardwalk, a couple of those bars, like you can go to the Pony, or you can go to Wonder Bar, or you can go downtown on like Cookman down there, and you're gonna see a live musician, and they're gonna be really good. You know?
Yeah, and it was cool, and it was cool hearing too. Like even when you had Young Benny on, he was talking about performing with the PNB Rock, right? Like,
exactly.
So that's really cool. I love the Asbury for that, and also it's as close as you could get to like here.
Yeah,
to like
I think, hour from here or whatever.
I feel like it's the first great beach you get to when you're heading down south.
Yeah.
Like, so that's my number 2. My number 1, and that has my heart. Is Cape May.
That's true. Yeah, Cape May's a good one. Like we used to go to Cape May all the time when I was a kid. But I feel like Cape May is a great spot. It's so crazy that it's so close to Wildwood, because it is an entirely different world. It's like if you just go 20 more minutes or whatever, 15, whatever part of Wildwood you're in, like you're gonna get a totally different experience just driving like that little extra. You
Yeah.
know, it's insane.
Yeah, dude. And I don't know what it is about Cayman. I kind of have like a childhood like connection to it because when I was little, like I said, my parents first generation immigrants, they didn't know anything. And actually, who helped raise me was my like best friend and his family, and they would take me on all this. I guess you could call them like American like dream trips or
Yeah.
whatever. So they had a trailer out in Cape May at this trailer park, and they'd always be like, "Hey, for the summer, you want to come down for a couple of weeks?" And they would take me, and I would get to experience like what it was to like, I guess like be American or
Sure.
like like the dream,
Yeah.
So we'd
What
go to
is the oldest shore like Cape May is like the oldest shore like vacation destination, whatever. I forget exactly what it's the oldest, but it's in the country.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like that's how like significant of a place that is.
Yeah, dude, and I just love the architecture, the old Victorian houses.
Yeah, that's
the
really
history's
cool.
there, the haunted stuff that's there.
Yeah.
They have a Sunset Beach over there, and it's so beautiful to see the sunset. They have these old like New Jersey type ice cream shops. And
Yeah.
there's not even like there's like stuff to do there, but there's not like a lot. But it's just a very calm vibe, and I don't know, like I'm at. It almost feels like I'm in an enjoyable fever dream when I'm down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's actually a lobster. I think it's called the Lobster House out in Cape May, and
know.
it's like they have a really fancy restaurant inside. Although I can't really vouch for that too much because I've never been inside. But then they sell the same food outside, like on a deck, and they
love
have a
eating
little
outside.
boat there,
Yeah.
and you could drink on the little boat that's there.
Oh, cool.
And other boats can pull up and order food and leave on the boat, and it's the coolest thing ever. I go there every time, and they have a shrimp burger.
Ooh.
Dude, I'm getting worked up.
Have you been to Uncle Bill's in Cape May?
I have not.
Uncle Bill's Pancake House. I remember going there as a kid, and then I would always get the corn pancakes, which are pancakes with corn in them, which sounds so bizarre.
Yeah.
But they're amazing. And I remember like this is now 2019. I went back. I was staying in Wildwood just as like a girl I was dating at the time. We did like a weekend there for my birthday. And I was like, we're going to Uncle Bill's at some point on this trip because I need to make sure that those pancakes are as good as I thought that they were when I last went. And so we went and they were better because then I could appreciate like good food at this point in my life, I feel like. So yeah, add that to your list when you go back down.
But I definitely will.
Yeah.
I definitely will. Let's move on to another touchy subject. Best/worst. Let's go cities in Jersey. And we'll do like a top 3.
Okay. Top 3, like my favorite places. I love living in Morristown.
Right.
Because it's got all the stuff that I could ever possibly want, and it's not overwhelming. Asbury, I'm gonna put Asbury in my top 3 because it just is a great spot for all the things we just mentioned. And then I want to say my like in the top 3 also, and these are all very interchangeable. My girlfriend lives in Montclair now, and like I've been spending a lot more time in Montclair, and I've always gone to Montclair and like really appreciate like what like what its own diversity and like the amazing like food and like all that kind of stuff that kind of rolls through Montclair. So I might put Montclair in my 3. So like those would be, I guess, my top 3. My least favorite are places that Newark might be also kind of like bumping up in there, simply because of like a lot of the same things. It's very diverse, a lot of really great food, a lot of really cool things to do. In like, I don't have a top 3 worst, like least favorite places in Jersey, but going to like Hoboken, like when I have to record episodes in Hoboken or Jersey City is such a pain in the ass. Like, it's so annoying. And I love like when I'm there, like when I finally park the truck and I get out and like I can do what I need to do. Like I love all the stuff that it has to offer, but it's just always a shit show to go like a mile. Like I had to drop something off at the Jersey City City Hall for a friend of mine. Like I got married, they asked me to drop off the marriage license because they were on their honeymoon, and then I was going up to Hoboken to record an episode. It was literally 1.2 miles. It took me 45 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, like I put it in my GPS. I'm like, what the like? Does that say 12 miles? Like I know it's not 12 miles. I'm like, no, 1.2. Like 45 minutes. Like what the hell? But yeah, that's the only reason why that's the reason why I love Morristown, is because it doesn't really have that. You know, at certain times of day, I'm sure it does, but nothing like Hoboken or Jersey City. And like those, that's just my only gripe with those places.
Yeah, you know what's funny? Even saying it out loud, like best places, worst places, it's more like love, and then the places I have like a love-hate relationship with.
Yeah, exactly.
Like probably my favorite places in Jersey would have to be like Jersey City, actually, believe it or not,
Okay.
because that's like a second home for me.
Yeah.
This is tough for me, man, because there's like a lot of places I love. Jersey City, Patterson.
Okay. I don't spend a lot. I need to go to Patterson more.
Patterson's an interesting place.
Yeah.
It's like a lot. It gets a bad rap,
Sure.
obviously, for like the stuff that goes on there. And there are places there where it's like,
That's
like,
any place.
yeah, that's any place.
Yeah.
It would probably be Jersey City, Patterson. Maybe somewhere in Freehold.
Okay.
Because I don't know, there's just something about like being out there that just like makes it just feels like so open, so natural, and the vibe is just different.
Yeah, well, that's like why I like. I mean, so I grew up in Pequannock, but then moved to Sparta right before high school, and which is like up in Sussex County,
Yeah.
which is very similar to like that South Jersey vibe. Like my parents live in Sparta, which is kind of like its own little oasis in all of.
I love Sparta. Sparta's
Yeah,
great.
it's a really great, and like I love going up there, like having a beer with my dad, like on the back porch, whatever. I also like the fact that I don't live there anymore because like I need a little action.
Yeah.
Like I need something to go on. But it is just so beautiful and like so open and quiet and whatever. Like they have like a little barn with like a horse and 2 goats back there. And so it feels like you're like on the farm. And then you go back to Morristown and you're like, okay, we're back to. But I do that in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the other cool thing is like we said, Asbury, like an hour away. So you can get to the beach, to, a hiking trail near my parents, to, something in Newark, like to get dinner at the end of the day, like in a day. And it's not going to be like the worst day ever. It's going to be like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, man. I definitely feel that. There's always different places in Jersey that surprise me sometimes, and how sometimes things are very close in vicinity that you wouldn't even recognize. Like I know there's some places in Lincoln Park that feel like it's like regular, and then you just stroll through and it's like a cute little town. But there's some parts in Lincoln Park that feels like the sticks.
Yeah.
Like the sticks. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Like I feel like I'm in a completely different place. Is there anything in Jersey or about Jersey that you feel like is people sleep on, or that they don't know, that you feel like you've got to tell people?
That's a really good question. Do you have your own answer for this?
Yeah, I'll let you think.
Yeah, you go first and let me percolate on this question for a minute.
I think the things that people sleep on Jersey the most, and I kind of said this before, is the countryside of Jersey and really the most southern parts of Jersey. Like there's such a different wave of culture from town to town, and I only got to experience this when I was working for the ice cream place. And especially even like me knowing Cape May, when I told people, I was like, I think Jersey has some of the most beautiful beaches, or like there's places in Jersey where just I feel like it could compete to some of the best places to go to a beach in the United States.
Yeah.
And people are just like, there's no way, blah, 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 this and that. And I'm just be like, dude, like, you look at the variety we have, people just don't appreciate it. Like, even going to the top of High Point, like, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
We have the Pine Barrens, which is a completely different vibe than just like woods and stuff. We have the whole coast, these beaches, the food is insane, and it's like, when I tell people, I'm like, I have everything I need here.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, like, what about like the California sunset? And I was like, dude, there's some times where there's been multiple times where I've been stuck in traffic on like the Turnpike or like the Garden State, and I'm just there, and then the sun is setting and the sky is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and I'm like, I'm blessed to live here.
Yeah.
And I'm living the dream. Like my parents, I came from Peru, they never got this, and now I get to see all of this, and it's just because you won't leave or drive like an hour away or an hour south or 2 hours south. Like, travel, discover, like, it's all here.
Yeah.
That's kind of like my
That was a great answer. Now anything I say is gonna be terrible. But like, so to me, it's always goes back to like, and it's like what I base the whole show on. It's like the people that live here, because like all those things that you just said, like the food, obviously like geographically, like they didn't take care of that. That was like whatever you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
But just like all the stuff that now has kind of been like an influx of chefs or eventually like breweries and distilleries and like all these different like little nuanced things, and like making like creating an Asbury Park or like creating a Morristown or like whatever town you want to be in. But like the people at the end of the day are kind of like what makes all that happen, and like all those different cultures kind of like swirling around and kind of just make you, at least in my opinion, and I could be biased or just totally off base, but like I think it made me more worldly and like more. I called you worldly too, but like just in a sense of like when I go to like when I mentioned before, like I was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Like that's not a particularly diverse place. It's like everyone kind of looks like me, and like and not in a bad way, but it's just like that's just kind of like the way certain parts of the country are. And like to me, being around like all these people, it just made me like so curious about kind of like how you got here. Like how are you sitting in this chair right now with me talking about like the same type of thing? You know what I mean? Like we both have similar interests. We're both from a completely different part of time and space, but at the same time like we have like a very like deep rooted, it seems like, similar interest. And like to me that's like what it's all about. It's like I think people from Jersey get a bad rap from other people, and I always like joke about how because they're jealous of like what we have, that like they have to drive hours and hours or get on a plane to go get. But yeah, I mean, like to me it's the people. Like that is 1,000% what I will always come back to, is like everything that happens here is because of the people that live here and like kind of make the state go and like give it all of its character and toughness and grit and like all these other things that just other places they may have it, but because they're bigger or whatever, it's like all spread out, so you don't get to like experience it all the time. Like all these different, like you said, Lincoln Park, it's like you drive in Lincoln Park and you're going to get like all these different cultural or like geographic or locational experiences, and that's just like one town. Now multiply that by a state. It's just it's insane.
It's a beautiful answer, dude.
Thank you.
We're coming pretty close to the end of the podcast.
Okay.
But
I'm really upset about that,
I
honestly.
know, right? It goes so quick. I'm like looking at my time over here. Like, there's
How
no way.
long have we been going for?
We've been going for about an hour and a half.
Wow.
So, but it's not over yet.
Okay, good.
I wanted to open up the floor out to you. If you have anything that you wanted to talk about, if there's anything that we didn't get to that you feel like we should have got to, I can't imagine this is going to be your only time on the podcast.
I would
like,
appreciate
for real,
that.
Like
yeah.
that I would love to have you back at some point.
Yeah.
But I'll open up the floor to you. Maybe there's something that you've been working on now that you would like to share, or maybe part of your life that we haven't talked about. Literally anything. The floor is yours.
Okay. I think we did cover like a lot of stuff that like I would normally talk about on a show, and I'm sure if I come back like we'll have more to talk about. But like to me, like the stuff that I've been doing is like it's gonna keep moving forward, like in a sense as is. But I have like all these other ideas for like new projects that'll be kind of like an extension off of the show itself, because like to me it's can be more than just like a podcast. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different things that I can do with it, whether it's like through social media or through more content that I create. I have one idea in particular, and I'm not gonna like talk about it simply because it's not a fully formed idea yet. But it would just be like more like a higher production quality conversation with more people in like in a space that like similar to like what I do, just a little bit more like fleshed out, a little bit more like a group of people kind of getting together and talking and talking about Jersey or where we are. If like we're in Newark, we're gonna talk about Newark or like that kind of thing. That's like as specific as I really can get, because it's not, again, a fully formed idea. But yeah, like I'm always looking for new places, looking for different places to go. Like I get, like you said, like I said before, I get pitched constantly by places and people specifically, but then also by like friends, like, oh, you should have like this place. And I'm like, I know, like I'll add it to the list. There's no list. But yeah, I mean, like to me, I love Jersey. I love like the stuff that you do. That's like why I reached out, because obviously like you do a really good job with your show.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate it.
Like I was just like pumped to be here, and I love just the whole like you said before, like kind of figuring out like what your focus is. And I've been trying to get a little bit more onto the culture side, like getting some more artists and musicians and like that kind of thing on my show, because I do think that helps round out like the types of people that you get in Jersey. And I just think that like you do such a great job like highlighting those people and like giving them a platform that like they otherwise like don't have, like and I think that's really awesome. And I just that's all I got, I think, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Mike, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on the podcast, man. This has been great.
Yeah.
I can't think of the last podcast that I laughed like this much. Like I had an absolutely amazing time having you here. Yeah, let the people know where they could find you, Instagram, socials, whatever. And if you have any shout outs, now's the time to do it.
So greetingsfromtheGardenState.com is the hub for all things that we do with the show. So you can get to all the episodes of the show, like whether it's on listening platforms or YouTube. So greetingsfromtheGardenState.com. It's a long URL, but I committed to it so early and now I can't change. Same thing with the Instagram handle. It's at Greetings from the Garden State, which is also way too long. But like those are the two main places. Like if you want to go check out stuff about the show, like obviously we're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeart, Odyssey, wherever you're going to listen to shows. We have merch that you did mention at the beginning. It is very Jersey. But greetingsfromtheGardenState.com, at Greetings from the Garden State on Instagram. Those are the two main places to get all our stuff. And just shout out everybody that in Jersey and like listening to us do our thing and like talk to these really cool people and like have been supporting, and like I said before, like maintaining those relationships beyond just the episodes that we do has been like my favorite thing. And like the show itself would be nowhere if not for like all the great guests that have kind of come through and supported me in like more ways than just sitting, like allowing me in their space to like unpack my cardboard box and with all my mics and cameras and whatever, and just like have a conversation. They've just been incredible, and obviously like the listeners too, because they're awesome. And like it would be really suck if nobody listened and we're just shouting into a vacuum.
Sometimes it feels like that.
It does sometimes feel like that, yeah. But I will say, like, if you ever do something in person, you could try it. Like make your own little concert or whatever, like a show, because then like you start inviting people that you've had on your show, and then you start filling out like a guest list and like an audience and whatever, and then you start to see, like, that was what was so cool to me about doing the anniversary show. We had all those people come out, is because like like I don't know where you host your show, but like you see the number of listens and you're like, man, that's not that much. And then like you see them in a room together and you're like, what the fuck, like this is amazing. It's such a different experience, like interacting with people in person and like seeing them all in a group that all have kind of like a similar interest. So yeah, maybe put that into your future plans, because I know you don't have a lot to do right now.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all already know the business. Ayoo Podcast, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you find your podcast, wherever you find your videos, we're on there. Remember to like, subscribe. That's how you keep the podcast alive. That's how you keep, with dope shows like this. And there's only one thing left to do, man. Let's get the fuck out of here.
Sweet.
Dude, sick, bro. Oh, that was great, man.
Yeah, man, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Dude, of course, bro. Absolute pleasure, man. This is great.
Yeah.